Syria, clashes between security forces and pro-Assad militiamen. Damascus, Syrian security forces have launched an operation in the western province of Tartus to hunt down pro-Assad militias, the official Sana news agency announced, a day after clashes with gunmen affiliated with the old regime left 17 dead in the same area. The operation made it possible to neutralize a certain number of members of these militias loyal to Bashar al-Assad, Sana said. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reports several arrests in relation to the bloody fighting that shook Khirbet al-Mazah yesterday. Unprecedented demonstrations are underway in the province of Tartus, where a large part of the Alawite community, of which the deposed president, Bashar al-Assad, is a member, resides. Yesterday, a Syrian NGO reported that 17 people had been killed and 10 injured, while the new regime's security forces tried to arrest an officer of the deposed leader, Bashar al-Assad. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that 14 members of the General Security Force of the new Syrian authorities had been killed, along with 3 armed men in Khirbet al-Mazah. The officer was believed to be among those responsible for the crimes of Saydnaya prison, the observatory added. The doors of Syrian prisons have been thrown open after rebels led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, ousted Assad. The observatory said that the wanted man was an officer of the forces of the former regime who held the position of director of the Military Justice Department and head of the field court, identifying him as Mohammed Kanjo Hassan. He would have issued death sentences and arbitrary sentences against thousands of prisoners. Clashes in Tartus province, a stronghold of Assad's Alawite minority, erupted after some residents refused to allow their homes to be searched, said the British-based observatory, which relies on a network of sources inside Syria. The officer's brother and gunmen intercepted the security forces, ambushed them near the village, and targeted one of the patrol vehicles, the observatory said. He added that dozens of people were arrested in the village. The notorious Saydnaya compound, the site of extrajudicial executions, torture, and enforced disappearances, embodied the atrocities committed against Assad's opponents. The fate of tens of thousands of prisoners and missing persons remains one of the most harrowing legacies of the conflict. Putin, we are trying to end the conflict with Ukraine. Russia is committed to ending the conflict in Ukraine. This was reiterated by the leader of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, speaking to the press at the end of the informal summit of the Commonwealth of Independent States and the meeting of the Eurasian Supreme Council in the Leningrad region. This was reported by RIA Novosti, and Slovakia has come forward as a place to host possible peace negotiations between the two countries. Slovakia is ready, Putin said, referring to his recent meeting with Prime Minister Robert Fico and explaining that Moscow is not against such a hypothesis. In any case, Moscow always intends to respond in a mirrored way to Kiev's attacks on Russian territory. On this, the Kremlin leader was clear. They use certain weapons against us. We use the same. Putin said that 5 to 7 ATACMS missiles were used on the territory of the Federation. The Russian military responded with a complex attack with high-precision long-range weapons. The Russian president also revealed that his American colleague Joe Biden in 2021 offered him to postpone Kiev's accession to NATO. Beyond everything, Russia will continue to pursue and achieve all the goals of the special military operation in 2025 and achieve success on the front line. Of course, we start from the fact that we will complete all the tasks of the special military operation. This is generally the number one task, Putin told reporters. We will achieve success on the front line, he added, saying he kept up to date on the situation on the ground, day and night. On the crisis between Ukraine and Russia, Sergei Lavrov also had his say, explaining that Moscow hopes that the administration of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will analyze the root causes of the Ukrainian conflict and is ready for consultations to explain its position. I sincerely hope, said the Russian foreign minister, that Mr. Trump's administration, including Mr. Kellogg, analyzes the root causes of the conflict. We are ready for consultations and for yet another confirmation of our position, which has been repeatedly expressed loud and clear. We are open to any negotiation if it is substantial and addresses the fundamental causes and principles which President Putin defined in June this year. Lavrov said in an interview with Russian and foreign media, statements by Keith Kellogg, Trump's appointed special envoy to Ukraine, that the Minsk agreements were a failed attempt to resolve the conflict, suggests that he still needs to delve into the Ukrainian dossier, Lavrov said. Perhaps Mr. Kellogg should look into the matter in more detail. The Minsk agreements were not an attempt, but a decision of the UN Security Council that was trampled on. In 25 years of reign, Putin has seen the world change, and he is always there. On December 31st, 1999, Russia was at war as it is today, not with Ukraine, but with the separatists of Chechnya. On that day, Boris Yeltsin, the first president of the Federation after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, resigned. He was sick, and above all, very discredited because of his problems with alcoholism. The man Yeltsin had indicated a few months earlier as head of government took over the interim role. Vladimir Putin, a former lieutenant colonel of the USSR Secret Service, KGB, and former deputy mayor of St. Petersburg, who had quickly made a career in recent years. Head of the Kremlin staff in 1997, the following year head of the FSB, the intelligence agency heir to the KGB, on the 25th of March 1999, Secretary of the Security Council, and on 9th of August, in fact, Premier, Putin was confirmed with 53% in the presidential elections of March 2000, won the Chechen conflict, and in July participated in his first G8 in Okinawa, Japan. The family photo of that summit seen today seems to come out of the history books, belonging to a remote and profoundly changed world, were it not for Putin, who 25 years later is still in his post. First of all, it is precisely the G8 format, abandoned after the Russian occupation of Crimea, that no longer exists. Today, Russia is no longer allowed, and there is always and only talk of the G7.